Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Functional Fitness Uncensored. I don't know, episode 747 today.
No, it's got to be more than that. We've been doing this for
More
more.
than 700? Wow.
I mean, well, think about it. We've been doing this for 5 years. It cannot be, it has to be more.
No, if we did it every week for 5 years and didn't miss a week, that would be 52 weeks. Times 5, that would be 250, 60 episodes. That's just my math for today.
Okay, well, then your math is valid.
Welcome, everyone. We've been talking a lot about rest lately, and today we wanted to talk about rest in relation to your workout. And specifically, when we think about a workout, today we're going to talk about like your cardiovascular. We call it energy system development, which is a little bit more of an appropriate term because cardio doesn't really mean much. It just is like, yeah, like you're.
I feel like whenever we're talking about cardio is just like anything you do to elevate your heart rate.
Correct.
Like that's
right.
all it is.
Right, which can be any number of things. And so we call it energy system development because your body does have different energy systems, which require different substrates. And there are different things for different pieces that we're trying to work on. And so we could just cover, let's just a quick little basic. The most basic way to think about energy system development is three basic systems. We have our anaerobic system. Actually, we have our creatine phosphate system, our ATP, CP, ATP,
CR.
C,
Isn't it?
no, CP, creatine phosphate. So
No,
adenosine.
isn't it PC? Okay, anyways, it doesn't matter.
All right. So we have the first system, which utilizes ATP, which is think about it as like the energy currency inside of your cells. Really quick energy, quick explosive movements, right? I jump, I run really fast, right? It's typically under 10 seconds, give or take. So energy available right now, right? And then we have our glycolytic system, which is probably where most like interval training lives. And this is where we're using glucose as our main fuel source. So we're
And this
working.
is also anaerobic.
Correct.
I think
this
we should also say that too.
Yes. So when we say anaerobic too, it means in the absence of oxygen. Okay. So aerobic, oxygen, and without. And so what that means is your body is able to produce energy without having to use oxygen to do it. Okay. Yes, you're breathing, but your body is producing it without oxygen. And so there's a limit to that, right? Just like anything else. If you hold your breath too long, right, the body doesn't work anymore.
And that's at about 2 minutes. And then you're going to move into your oxidative, which is our aerobic.
Right. Our aerobic system. And so our aerobic system, right now we're bringing oxygen into the equation to then start producing energy. And so you get the most production now of energy, right? That's why you can do aerobic training for essentially ever.
Yeah, but it's also why you can't go hard usually when you're oxidative.
Correct. Because if you start going too fast, right, your body starts to build up all these metabolites, that burning sensation you get, right? Lactic acid, hydrogen ions, all of that stuff. The pH of your muscle starts to change and the system can't work appropriately and it forces you to slow down, right? And so when most people think about aerobic training, and I think the reason aerobic training became so popular was this idea of fat burning. And so when we move into our aerobic system, we are starting to utilize fat as the main fuel source. Not entirely, but as kind of the main fuel source. And everyone's a little bit different and when they start switching into utilizing fat as a fuel source. Whereas when we're in the anaerobic, the glycolytic system, right? The glycolytic system, we're using pretty much glucose, right? So that glucose is coming from our muscles. So we have these stores of glucose called glycogen, and they're also coming from our liver, right? But those are finite stores, meaning at some point you're going to run out of that stuff, right? And there's going to be no more to be able to pull from. An hour, hour and a half, really hard exercise, you're going to be depleting those systems. Runners, you probably have heard of the bonk, and that is typically when you've now run out of glucose and you are trying to shift into utilizing fat, and you're in this kind of a weird transition state. And so you kind of lose gas for a period of time, and then eventually it starts to pick back up, right? So when we think about energy system development, when we're working with our clients, it really is dependent on what their goals are, how much time we have, all those kind of things, and that's how we program things.
And I will say that when we're programming energy system for clients to do in the gym, we're looking at more anaerobic energy systems, thinking that when we're doing aerobic or our oxidative energy system stuff, you're going to want to be doing that on your own because it should be longer, slower tension, longer time, longer, slower time. So you don't need, like, for the most part, you don't need supervision while you're doing it. This should be something that you can do continuously, repetition over and over again, very, very easily with limited coaching and limited need for someone else.
Right. That's what we would consider like zone 2. It's a very common term, right? Where you're working hard enough where if you were having a conversation with someone, they would know that you're doing something, right? But you're not working so hard where you can't have that conversation or you're having to gasp for air after every couple words or after a sentence, right? And so for most people, it probably ranges in this 130 to 150 beats per minute if we're looking at that, depending on your age. But that will also be determined by how conditioned someone is. If you're in better condition, you'll be able to be in zone 2 at a much higher heart rate.
And if you ask us, get a Morpheus and just do it in the right zone.
Right. It kind of tells you where you should be, right? And so what that does is it improves our ability for our heart to eject blood out of itself. Right. And so every beat pushes more blood out of the heart, right, and moves it around the system. So your heart doesn't have to beat as many times in order to move the same amount of blood, right? That's why our resting heart rate lowers as we improve in condition. So that's a really good determinant on, hey, what kind of aerobic condition do I have? Lay down for 3 minutes, get a resting heart rate. And if you're above 80, yes, we need to do a lot of aerobic work, even if you're an athlete, because like your recovery system is not very good. We like to see people like in the 60s. And if you're training and actively working towards stuff, 5Ks, 10Ks, marathons, you probably should be in like the 40s, potentially even in the 30s as we start to condition, right? Elite athletes, Lance Armstrong, those kind of people, they're going to be in like the 20s, right? But they're genetically on a different level, right? So easiest resting heart rate, what is it at? If it's really high, we need to prioritize some more aerobic training. One thing with aerobic training too is duration. So we can't just do 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there. We need a long enough period of time, typically about 30 minutes. We like to see clients getting up over an hour of staying in this zone for that period of time. And this isn't like bumping up and out. So I see this sometimes with some clients. Well, I did this session and like I was out of it here. And so when I look at the session, I got about 30 minutes in this zone. Like that's not the same thing. It needs to be continuously in this zone. And
And I
most
will
people screw it up by going too hard.
Yeah, so I would also say that if you are new to something like this, running is probably not going to be the right thing for you. Running is going to be very hard in the beginning for you to be able to maintain on. So if you're someone that's wanting to start with cardiovascular training and work on this, you're going to want to start on, I would say the bike is probably going to be hands down one of your best options.
Bike works really well, especially like a spin bike or a Kaiser bike, because you can titrate the tension on the bike. Personally, for me, I have a hard time getting my heart rate up because one thing when you are in a seated position, you are going to have to
Well,
work
but you're
a
also
little bit
very
harder.
cardiovascular fit.
True. Like, I mean,
You
yeah,
could zone two run.
correct. Yes.
So if you're one of those people that your heart rate is over 80 when you do the lay down test, you probably want to start on the bike.
Yeah, and that's where having a heart rate monitor is really valuable because you could go for a walk. But the challenging part is when we are dealing with variables. So if I was doing zone 2 work, I probably wouldn't do it outside on a bike because there are too many variables of wind, of hills, of
So
traffic,
I do
of
all my zone two work basically on my bike. But
right. And
I have to crank my thing pretty heavy.
right. And honestly, like I think one of the best ways for a lot of new people is incline treadmill walking. Like I think it's one of the greatest. I mean, it's low impact, right? We can titrate the incline to get about where we need to be, right? You can add a pack if you want to as well to add a little bit more intensity, right? But you can really start to build a good condition. And honestly, it's easy to throw an iPad in front and watch a show, or it's easy to listen to stuff or watch things. And so I think it's a good gateway drug for a lot of people where running might feel like it's a little bit daunting and maybe I do want to become a runner, I mean, spend 3 months doing incline walking and I think you'll be able to really improve cardiovascular function. You'll be able to improve joint integrity, tendon integrity, ligament integrity of the feet in a very low impact type of way, right? But it doesn't, if I do want to run, I do need to run because treadmill artificially moves the hip into extension. You don't actually have to propel yourself forward. You just have to prevent yourself from falling off, right? And so it's more about hip flexion than it is about like projection. So one thing to note, like treadmill is great, but it isn't a substitute for actually locomoting through space. I've actually played with even some stuff around like skipping and doing some of those things. And as I think you can, if you're on a track or on a field or something where you have a lot of open space, I think you can actually be pretty effective with it if you're going between jogging and skipping and that kind of stuff. But it's good, just fun stuff to play with. Skipping, I think, is way underrated. Way underrated.
Totally underrated. It's so funny. I literally just put in our little chat for topic ideas, underrated, overrated, and I think we could have a whole talk about that. Okay, so the thing about zone 2 is you don't really need any rest while you're doing it. So let's dig into the anaerobic portions of it and what kind of rest we'd be looking at, because that was kind of like the whole idea of this episode, and we just went on a whole.
Well, I mean, I think it's good. It's like we'll talk about it for sure. But if someone is going to start with something, I think starting with zone 2 is a great place to start for any newbie and really anyone that's trying to improve their aerobic system. Because when we get into the glycolytic system, right? So we're thinking more than 10 seconds, but probably less than 2 minutes of work. Most people would call this interval training, right? And when you do this correctly, this friggin' hurts. Like it is hard, right? And so we kind of give people a little bit of a foray into this inside of functional fitness with shorter bursts of activity, usually like 10 seconds, right? Might be a sled push, might be a bike sprint. Those are typically the two of the ones that we start with first because they're very easy to implement. Injury risk is really, really low. You can really crank up the intensity as you get better at them. That's why I love the air bike. I think it's just like, for an older individual that maybe has some joint issues and things like that, it's one of the best conditioning tools because it's easy to implement. It's total body and you can really crank up intensity.
And I would say, like, even with working with high school age athletes, college age athletes, like, I still don't know if anything is better. Like I think sprinting,
right?
Sprinting, yes, but like, then you still have to make it fit the environment that you're in. Correct. So like,
yeah. But for your person that's brand new to exercise, I think the Airdyne bike can be a nice, and I think people with interval training, they start with too challenging of intervals. They end up doing, let's say, a 30-second work period, which when done correctly, 30 seconds is like right akin to an eternity. Like it is next to it. If done correctly. This isn't just like I'm moving for 30 seconds.
And then you have to rest for, like, most of the time we're going to be doing a 1-to-1. So you're going to rest for 30 seconds and then you're going to do it again. If you don't feel like you're dying, you did not do it right.
So, and like, here's the thing, and where most people screw up interval training is they just don't rest long enough. Right. And so let's say you're doing a 30-30 interval, which is really, really challenging, incomplete rest. Right. And if you're working hard, let's say you're doing jump squats for 30 seconds. Cool. Like you're going to be gassed. You're not going to be ready to start the next set in 30 seconds, but you're on to the next thing. Right. We did kind of get around this a little bit when we did do group training by alternating like upper, lower, or non-competing exercises. So you kind of got rest in between. But then honestly, really, when we looked at heart rate data, people would just go up and they would stay right here for 20, 30 minutes, right? They would just be at like a high intensity aerobic training is kind of really what it was in this really no man's land of physiological improvement. And so like they weren't going hard enough to really get that physiological benefit. They weren't resting long enough. So they couldn't go hard because their like fatigue was building. And so they're in this kind of like no man's land of just this sucks. So biggest thing for most people is just take longer with rest, right? Take longer with rest. Personally, like 1 to 3 when we're getting above 20 seconds or above is probably about right. Maybe even getting 1 to 4, 1 to 5.
And I'll say that when we're talking about women, this could be a little bit shorter. Women's rest recovery is going to be slightly better than men's. So we could potentially see some women feel pretty recovered at 1 to 2 or 1 to 3.
Right. And an easy way to do this, to look at it, is we should be able to, and this is again why I like a bike, right, or a rower, is we should be able to maintain the performance of each set throughout the entire prescribed workout, right? So let's say the goal is, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, okay, with that in mind, what are we looking at then? What are those scoring metrics that we're going to use? So we have a client, we're going to do 30 seconds of work, and then we're going to recover, and maybe we're going to just do a heart rate recovery. We're going to say recover till this heart rate, and then we're going to repeat. When you're looking at a rower, what number are you having them look at to hit for their next time?
Yeah, so typically with a rower, we're going to look at like watts. Watts is a really nice metric to look at because there's a lot of variability, right? Like you can get up high, you can like it changes enough for you to see like, okay, I did it better that time. So on a rower, you can, if you want to, you can set up like let's say the work period is 30 seconds. You could technically set up I think it's called a workout on the Concept 2 that's 30 seconds long. So then when you get on the rower and you're ready to start your set, boom, you hit your timer and then you go. And the benefit of setting the workout is it will record your average wattage, right, over that time period and give you a distance as well, right? So then we have, okay, cool. My average for that particular, work set was 200, okay, 200 watts. Sweet. Awesome. Cool. We rest for whatever was allocated for that rest time, right? Maybe we're doing it a heart rate recovery where, hey, you're going to recover to 60% of your heart rate max or whatever, right? And then you're going to hit the next interval. Cool. So then you hammer the next one, 200. Cool. About right. Okay. You hammer the next one, 200. Hammer the next one. Now it went down to 190, right? All right. We're still within a 10% like kind of grace period. So we'll keep it there. Boom. Hammer it again. Now you drop down to 180. Okay, now we're starting to see a drop off in performance. And so we have a couple options here. One option is to stop the workout. Like, okay, we weren't able to hit the performance standard, so we're going to end it. But another option is to like, okay, let's just add a little bit more rest time to this and then try it again and see if we're able to up that performance back to where we needed it to before, right? And then as you get in better shape, you'll be able to do more reps at that average or even have a higher average, right? And so that's just your body's improving, right? But ultimately, the goal is to be able to do more work in the same amount of time. That means that we're becoming more efficient. The goal is not to get tired. You will get tired, but a monkey with a stopwatch can make you tired, right? Like tired is not, I think too many times we go into workouts with the goal of exhaustion or the goal of like feeling like I did a lot of hard work, where it's really about like, how do I do the right amount of work to get the change that I want to get that allows me to do the things I really love do. And if you really love working out, awesome. But let's find some other hobbies too.
Agreed. What else you got for everybody today?
Really insightful comment there. Really insightful.
I mean, you were so hard. I just felt like I needed to bring us back down into like.
Well, workouts should serve a means, right? It is a means to help improve in other areas. And I think when you view it that way, it's a lot easier to show up consistently, right? Because I'm doing this to benefit this area of my life. I really enjoy hiking. Cool. I really enjoy winter sports, snowboarding, skiing, whatever. Cool. I really enjoy playing with my grandkids, right?
God, we've been around each other too long.
Which constitutes getting up and off the ground, which constitutes lifting 20 to 30 pounds, which constitutes short bursts of potential activity, which takes a little bit of capacity. And I mean, you see it all the time. Like you see people that just aren't in good physical condition and they don't have the ability to fully experience some of those moments.
Mm-hmm.
But the cool thing is much of it, barring weird orthopedic stuff, right, is in your control. It just takes a little bit of time and effort. One other one I want to talk about, because this has just kind of been in like popular culture a little bit recently, is the Norwegian protocol. We've talked about it before, but we talked about zone 2. That's like improving your ability to pump, right? But then we also want to improve our ability to utilize oxygen, right? So we can work harder for longer, essentially, right? If I had to go out and, I'm late for a plane in an airport, can I carry my luggage and run hard for the next 6 minutes to get to my gate on time? That kind of like stuff. We call that VO2 max. And so there's been a lot of more people are talking about this study. So you might run into it if you listen to any stuff out there, but it's called the Norwegian 4x4, which is a really simple method to improve your VO2 max. Modality, whatever you want, right? But it's 4 rounds of 4 minutes of work, of 3 minutes of rest. Pretty simple. Pick your modality, but you got to work hard for the 4 minutes. It is a very, it's not an all out effort, but it's pretty close to it.
Yeah.
And the study that just came out recently is they had people do this for 2 years. They had some other strength training that was involved as well, but they were doing once a week of the Norwegian. I think they eventually moved to 2 times a week after a period of time. And they took a heart of, I think these people were in their 50s, and they looked at their heart once they had done all of this, and it looked like the heart of someone in their 30s. So they were kind of able to like turn back the clock 20 years just by starting to implement some of this training, which is like super cool, right?
Really cool.
And it doesn't take a lot of time. If you're doing the math in your head, right? 7 minutes a round, 4 rounds, right? That's 28 minutes. Personally, I like about a 5 to 10 minute on ramp into this. I find it hard to just like jump on and turn it on and go. Like your heart rate, the systems in your body aren't like hormones where they just like can automatically change. Like it takes a little bit to like get things going. Right. I found I get better heart rate responses if I spend about 5 to 10 minutes of like just gradually ramping things up. Good warm up on the modality of choice. And then I think it's always good afterwards, 5-10 minutes of just like cool down, chill out, take some breaths.
But you're still talking about 40 minutes or less in a workout.
Correct. Right. And from an actual work standpoint, we're talking about 16 minutes of real effort, right? 16 minutes. That's it. Right. The rest of the time, you're kind of just like hanging out, not doing anything. I walk around during those 3 minutes. And many times right now I'm mixing modalities. I'm doing like rower and then I'm doing bike because it's crappy outside.
Trevor loves the rower for it. I love the bike and the stair mill. I would actually say the stair mill is one of my favorite ones to do.
I'll have to try that one. I haven't mixed that one in yet. Do you run on it? Do you run on it? Just like crank up the speed and go? Nice.
I kind of hold on though. I will say I kind of have, I'm not like leaning over, hold on, but like my hands are there.
You're not like supporting with your forearms and then just like moving your legs.
But I don't want to fall over on the stair mill. That scares the crap out of me. But I love the stair mill for that. The rower's a hard one for me.
So you need a little bit of efficiency. So we need to know how to row. And
I do know how to row.
You have to row enough to have efficiency. You need to turn the damper down. So
the damper should be down on for everybody anyways. Yes, which is, yeah. But my biggest struggle is that my upper back fatigues. Like my upper back is fatigued.
Well, so that's the challenge with some modalities, right? Is you'll get muscular fatigue before you can get your heart rate up into places that you want. So that's why I said you need a level of efficiency, because like you need to have endurance through that area in order for it. But it's 4 minutes too. Like we're not talking about like a 10,000 meter row. Like you're gonna maybe get 2,000. If you get 2,000, you're doing pretty good in 4 minutes. But yeah, I don't know. We can cover more of that in future episodes. But really, the big takeaway from this is rest appropriately and just understand the system that you're trying to improve upon, right?
Ooh,
and so like if you want to improve your heart's ability to move blood around the body, get some zone 2 work in. What's your resting heart rate look like? If you wear an Aura or an Apple Watch or whatever, what does it say your resting heart rate is before you get out of bed in the morning? It's just a good indicator on where it's at, right? And if you're above, I would even say 70. Let's add some more cardio into our life, right? And then once you start improving those pieces, I think adding in the top end now, like that's the low end, adding in the top end of like, let's get some intensity into this thing so that you can really get after it. And then when you start adding intensity, just make sure we're resting enough to make sure that we're not just turning into this like a suck session. So science.
No suck sessions.
No, that's like science. Look it up. All right. Until next time.
All right, everybody.
Doses.